Says it's live right now. Morning. Morning.
Right.
Stream just went up. This live stream just went up. Great.
I believe in like 15, 20 minutes. Should be good.
Good morning. Today's February 10th. I'd like to call to order the Troy Community Land Bank A&D Committee meeting. We'll start with roll call. Brian Barker.
Here.
Andrew Cooper.
Here.
James Mager. Here. Also here, Executive Director Brad Lewis and Project Manager Paul Diamond. We will start. It is 8:33. We'll start with an approval of the January 6th, 2025 meeting minutes.
No, we're tabling that.
So we'll table that
For the next one.
till next AD committee meeting. So we'll start with 791 status update, or I believe we're in attorney review.
Yeah, so I'll do the next three
Okay.
items on the list, at least to get going. I'll probably end up doing all of them, but 791 River Street's in attorney review. One thing that's holding up the attorney review is the enforcement mechanism that the land bank's gonna use to make sure that when people buy from us, they do keep the apartments affordable. What WOH was pretty thorough in making sure that there's a clawback mechanism or something, a penalty of some sort that makes it so people comply with their restrictions. I had to provide them with the enterprise contract that we use to start 791 River Street, which required some digging, going back into Paul's laptop now and Tony's old documents and that sort of stuff. But they wanted to make sure that we complied with the funding source. Right now, they're going to send them a contract that sort of says if every unit that's not affordable by nature at the start of a leasing agreement, they want to penalize them $25,000 a year, which is a lot of money. But this the start of the conversation, and they just want to start. I mean, of course, if the new owner complies, then you're good to go. The new owner is interested in living there, which I don't know if we knew about that ahead of time. I thought he was going to rent it out and then open his business there, but we're working through that sort of thing. And if he does live there, there's a potential for us to do some sort of thing. If he doesn't fit the bill for 100% AMI or lower, then there's a potential to possibly push those years of affordable housing down the road. Or after 10 years of the upstairs unit, you can do 10 more years of the upstairs unit if he lives there 20 years, some sort of thing where we still get 10 years for 2 units or 20 years of 1 unit, some sort of style of that.
That's if he doesn't qualify.
Right. That it's an idea at this point. I mean, there's other things like what if a holdover tenant becomes higher than 100% AMI? So the structure of the contract would say that there's no penalty, but you owe us those years on the back end when they move out. So that we still get the same number of years of affordable rental. Like somebody can move in that's affordable, but then later, if they're holdover, once they do their paperwork to show us their lease and their income, if they don't qualify, we are not kicking people out, but we're pushing those years on the back end of the lease. So they've been really thorough, but because of that, it's been slower.
Okay.
So I'll move on to any questions on that.
Is there a closing date?
Not yet, but there is at least a new contract and new enforcement mechanisms.
Yeah.
So 32156 6th Avenue closed last Friday. So that's I believe Lozier Property Management is going to start doing roofing and electrical work this week. I mean, that's at least what he told me. So that's good. I mean, there'll be 2 more units that are available for people in 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
Sort of the meat and potatoes of this, conversation is the next couple of things. 17 Park Avenue. We did get an application, which I emailed to you guys, and we did get the individual dropped off the checks right before the meeting, actually, because I told him we couldn't consider it unless he was completely, had a complete application. And also in conjunction with that, because this application came last week, I had already talked to Leah about what it would look like if we were to list with her, and I think the timeline for the board was a couple months. The application we got was for $25,000. Our listing price was $65,000. And in conversation with Leah, she said she could list it for $65,000. She was positive about that, number. She felt good that somebody might be interested in that. That being said, we have an individual who's interested and ready to invest. I think his budget was $150,000 into the building, and his plan was to sell it to a owner occupied, and if he couldn't, it was to rent a low income person. So he's really going to be a individual who'll develop the building, make it habitable, sell it to an owner occupied, or hold it for rental. He did provide a list of 4 properties that he owns, and Paul and I plan to go down to code and look at probably 4 to 6 properties, and they have folders in code to their properties, plus the other ones we have listed here, just to see what the story is for all these buildings. So we plan to go there around lunchtime today.
Just
So,
diligence.
yeah,
He's got 5, you said?
yeah, it was listed in the application. It's up to the A&D committee to make recommendations moving forward. I think having developers working on projects are good. I think we're gonna have a couple more projects coming up after we're done with our winter work. I mean, it's projects in terms of getting to the finish line. I know that we have, 11 or I think 12 buildings right now. 791's done, so we have 11 buildings on a docket, and we're hoping to fix 3 of them ourselves this year. 3 to 4 of them would be great. So those other 7, we do need to find co-developers or at least have a plan for them in the future, so. Leave it to you guys to discuss that.
After looking at the application, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the board to consider this application pending we get him to come up a little bit in price. If Leah believes we can get to 65, we can get this gentleman closer to that, considering he is in good standing with code. I'd like to make the recommendation to consider his application if we can negotiate price. If the deal does fall through, to give Brad the authority to enter into a listing contract with Leah. It's just time is because
Can we do all
time.
that in one motion? That's a motion. I mean, I will second a motion that we can recommend to consider it so that we can discuss, right, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, seconded.
On the consider the application.
Consider
If
the
he comes up.
application. Well, considering the application, I think encompasses, well, that's not accepting that offer. That's just like, consider the offer, maybe we counter offer. Like, I don't know if we need to. I agree that price seems low.
Yeah.
And if we need to consider the offer and be clear that we don't think it's high enough right now, then yes, I agree with that. I don't know if that's necessary, but
Yeah,
that's where I
I
agree
think,
with you on that. Like, because it hasn't been this offer came just from the website listing. From our website, yeah.
And networking, I should say,
And networking, sure.
I met his partner and I was looking to invest in a property in South Troy. And I was at a showing and I was talking to real estate agent, said, hey, we're gonna have a lot of properties for sale. So I gave the real estate agent my card and said, look at our website. And then he gave this to his client.
And Leah thinks that the 65 is fair.
She said she would list it at that, meaning that she feels good to list it at that. I mean, she listed it at,
we also have it listed at 65, right, on
Yeah,
the website?
yes,
That's also our price too.
it's our non-marketed. She wants to market it on MLS and talk to developers, people that are.
I thought we were at 55. I was wrong. We're at 60.
I agree. I'd want to see him come up. Part of being responsible to the neighborhood is attracting developers. job and not just get things for a song and then do the minimal and get out, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, if we knew, okay, if he sold for 25 and then he said his project budget was 150 or something like that, right? And is he gonna put in 150 in it? But then if he buys it for 50, he's gonna put 100 in it? Like, if,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean, I didn't even know that, but
It's hard to know what he's gonna invest.
yeah, like, I agree with that sentiment, like, show us that you're committed.
Yeah.
And get some skin in the game.
So I agree,
Yeah.
I agree with the motion, let's consider it, but
It's gonna be the
That's a
page
big-
11, I think.
that's a
Give
big
you his
discount.
project budget.
And just to be clear, the reason why I add the second part of it with Leah is because if we give Brad the next week and a half to see if this gentleman is willing to come up, if we add the Leah component into it, this guy says, listen, I really can't. At any amount higher than 25, the project doesn't work for me. I gotta bail, right? At that point, we can recommend to the board next Wednesday, let's get this thing on the MLS, right? So we're not we'd be waiting till next AD committee meeting
To
to
list it, you'd be waiting the next board meeting.
go live.
Yeah, so let me throw out an idea. So I think I hear what you're saying. You can move this out of A&D committee saying that, contingent on us going to code and checking their properties to make sure this guy's property, this property is 100%, make sure he doesn't have code violations or owe taxes on one of the
Mhm.
properties. He's good. The second thing is contingent on an agreed upon price. So you can make that there to get it to the full board.
Mhm.
But then when we're at the full board, we can have a separate and distinct resolution to allow us to go into a listing agreement contingent on this deal falling through. So this, if the deal falls through, we'll list it with Leah. And if there's a separate thing that if this guy is willing to come to an agreed upon price with somebody at the full board, then, we can do that. And I can softly, tell them, hey, this is what happened in committee.
Mhm.
They're looking for you to come up. Do you have any other number that you're willing to at least tell me and give me a feeling of that I can present at the full board so that they can see where you might be at with the whole thing,
So
Obviously, I can't do anything without the board approval, so,
we create two resolutions for the official board meeting.
yeah, distinct ones, yeah. I mean,
This just sort of kind of raises an issue that I'm not clear on, which is, do we have a standard for when we move an offer out of this committee to the board? Because in this instance, it's a viable offer, but not with a good price.
mhm.
Which, okay, moving forward and have the price discussion. Or do we always do that? Or is it like, do we? I mean, are there, you know what I'm saying? Like, at what point is an offer whole enough? Certainly it's a full application, I think, right? Like, we have all the application requirements in that.
Mhm.
But then do we always move those forward if they have a full complete application? Well, then what's the point of us having a committee meeting then? Like,
Yeah, I think if you knew a individual that applied was not actually a qualified individual or somebody whose plan you didn't like the story here is
right.
he wants to fix it. Yeah, wants to fix it. He's currently invested and he wants to sell it to an owner occupied. So at that point, he's restricting this to owner occupied and also it's going to have to be under 100% AMI. I believe this is one of our restricted properties. It's not with LBI 2, but we've told them that we were planning these to be affordable housing. So I assume we're going to go with the same restrictions. So he already understands the restrictions. Now, a full application doesn't necessarily mean it's a good application. So we are the gatekeepers. So if somebody says, I want to buy it and flip it and, I don't want to sell, I want to sell it to a property holding company in New York City.
Mhm.
This particular application restricts it to owner occupied. He can't sell it to, he can, but then at that point, WH is gonna make sure we have mechanisms.
Whatever penalty
to
or
come back. So if it's not an owner occupied person, then he's actually limiting himself to this plan. So you're sort of telling the full board, we've considered all this stuff. And versus somebody coming with an application that doesn't consider stuff.
Right. Okay.
I think to answer your question too, just to add to this, and I'll go on the record saying this. An instance where we would not recommend. This is not a purchase application, but there was a certain, proposal put in for 785 River Street, correct? This person had already tried to get the property from us. This person had already done something we did not like to the back of the property, therefore we
Right.
decided not to, right? So if something
Yeah.
clearly stands out in their application, like we mix it, like this guy's completed the application. He's made an offer, but we don't necessarily want to accept the offer, but we should still move it along to the board to consider if he comes up.
Right.
So we have 10 days or so to get him to come up, right? And
Well, I should say that we have 10 days before the board meeting happens and we can vote to,
accept
the
it.
board could vote to allow somebody to negotiate for the board with,
Right.
you know, obviously by setting a minimum in an open meeting, it's
Yeah.
kind of, it's awkward for negotiations. You could go into executive session and talk about, you know, real estate pricing. But the board could empower Jamie to negotiate the price and then go into executive session.
Or
to-
you.
Yeah, or me, you know, go to
Right.
executive session to set a minimum. You know,
All right, that's helpful. I mean, I'm still supporting.
Yeah. me too.
So I believe the motion would be then to recommend the application for 17 Park to the full board with consideration that we negotiate a price.
Yeah.
Correct.
and contingent on
And
code looking.
On
contingent on all that.
There's already a first and second, so you just
Yeah,
call
all,
for a
yeah,
vote if you want.
all in favor?
I,
And then the listing thing too, we can recommend that, or we can just do it, do that, I don't think.
We can
needs
do
to
that
be-
at the meeting.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah,
That could be a motion that
Yeah,
somebody
that's-
presents at the meeting.
Moving on to 3329 Street, Tripp wants us to take a donation of that building. And so we need I gave you guys a picture, I didn't print them out for me and Paul.
And that's simply a dollar transfer, a deed for $1.
We can accept gifts, but I'm sure we can do $1 too.
So we can,
We can,
Okay,
the land bank can
okay.
accept gifts.
Okay.
So there's two pictures with this one. One's an overhead and it's just a building they own. I would suspect that we would stabilize it. And then at that point, their opinion is it needs to be demolished, but if they're giving it to us, it's up to us to decide what to do with it.
Mhm.
And so my opinion is that when I look at it, it's a great brick structure and frankly, it looks pretty plumb. You know, I haven't seen the inside, but if they're willing to give it to us, it's something that we can do and we can definitely apply for grant money this fall or this winter to do further work on it.
What do you think it needs to be done? Just a gut.
I'm not sure. I think
I mean,
they-
that makes me a little bit nervous.
well, I think their dream is to demolish it and put up a more modern spec building because they own the properties around them. But when I sort of told them it's not the land bank's mission to take gifts, demolish buildings, and then give them back to people so that they, you know, vacant land back to people to do things. I said, why don't you just buy vacant land on the street? Just give us the building. Then you can still do your work. It's just not going to be at that location. So I think initially that was their plan, but then once I told them, I think they just have a vacant building and they're going to have to pay fees if they don't start doing something. So they just want to get off of it. But when I look at it, it's not like it's not as bad as Ida Street, the other property we might discuss today. So, you know, when I look from the outside,
that open piece of parcel to the left, looking at it, belongs to the neighbor? Or we don't know, I mean.
I think Tripp owns it to the left, yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
They,
Can we do further inspection on this before agreeing to any kind of,
sure.
because that would be my only thought, right? Like,
I mean,
if we get it, the foundation's like all messed up and it's,
well, we're redoing a foundation.
I mean, I'm not saying we can't do it. You can always do something.
I've seen the outside, not the inside. But I mean, at the same time, if we take it on and it needs to be demolished, we can use our LBI money for demolitions. We have 85,000 to do demolitions.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, I you know, as ED, I'm thinking to myself, where's our path forward? And I think in the past, there were things like legacy cities is our path forward, or getting certain properties up to the city foreclosure list. But as I hear more in the land bank struggling to acquire properties, when somebody's trying to give us something that we can do for the neighborhood, to me, we're hearing it organically. Our mission is being driven organically by the community.
Did Trip reach out to us?
Yeah,
So,
I mean, multiple times. First, it started with one of their treasurer, Joe Durkin. He reached out and I also believe Elbert serves on Trips board, and Elbert probably communicated how we could help with this.
so this could create a good partnership.
I think it communicates what we can do as a land bank. You know, we can take your problems and solve them, and everybody will be like, oh yeah, you can just give it to the land bank, and then you don't have to deal with the vacant building.
Yeah, I motion to receive the gift from Trip.
I'll second the motion. Any further?
So, you know, so my only thought is the logic of, well, Trip doesn't want to invest in this building.
Mhm.
And you're like, well, just buy another, you know, look for other property and do your mission.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, we could similarly, you know, this is of course, it's a free building.
Mhm.
But it certainly is gonna have some level of expense for whatever, you know, the plan is.
Yeah.
And I know there's no easy way to know this answer this kind of question, which is like, well, sure, we could work on this and put money into this property and building of some unknown amount, which, you know, that's that unknown.
Yeah.
Or we could look for other buildings.
Yeah.
So just like with Trip, and that's my only, I'm not against this. I'm just like, I wish we knew a little more.
Well, we're uniquely funded to take on
Sure.
problems.
Yeah.
And we can.
Well, right, yeah, no, I mean, our economics are different.
Yeah, let me pose this idea to you. Imagine we get this for free. And then imagine we use LVI phase 2 money to fix the roof and stabilize the foundation, like we're doing, we
Yeah,
did it.
right.
That doesn't come out of our money. They fund us and then we write the
No,
check.
no,
So then imagine after that, we sell it like we potentially could at Park or 32156. That money goes into our bank account. And as long as we're wise with our grant funding from an operational standpoint in our phase 2, it would just increase the amount of money we have as working capital for any catastrophe or thing that we need to do immediately. My vision is to have not this sort of scarcity mentality in the land bank. We could turn the grant money into working cash money that could use to further its mission in any way, or say grant funding dries up, you need to finance like payroll. You know, how do you do that?
Does Trip pay vacant building fees?
I would assume.
No.
Right.
So then they want it off. They want this off the balance sheet.
My-
I'm assuming. They don't want to assume that expense.
that seems likely. Sorry, I don't call it. Had a flu a week ago. No, have a call. Yeah, and I mean, I understand economics and all that, and how that fulfills some of our organizational needs too. My thought is to be sure that we're being responsible with grant money, and does this make sense to do that? And I'm not saying it doesn't, that was just my question. Like,
Yep.
we don't know what we're getting into, so there's always a bit of a question, but I'm not against it, and I would.
Can we go look at it prior to closing on the deal?
Sure.
Then-
Sure.
So you wanna make that a contingency?
You could, but you could also just, you know,
I mean,
you could also just,
I say tape.
It's not like you looked at the outside, it's not, you
yeah.
know, usually there's something
Not even
major.
an X on it. You know, we're taking
Right.
off building this year.
Yeah. I mean, that's a fair point.
Just, we love buildings.
So
Here's so much about these buildings.
all in favor of accepting 332 Ninth Street from Trip as a gift? Aye.
Yeah.
All in favor? Aye, 3 ayes, no. nays. Motion passed.
Mhm.
Now, Ray, do you want to talk about your city's foreclosure list?
Yeah, so we're back to acquisition questions. I think 3244 and 32466 Ave, both those parcels, I think everybody assumes we're gonna eventually take on. They are adjoining two other parcels we have, and would you assemble all those and Habitat might be able to put one building there? But I don't know, as, you know, like, how do you guys in the past deal with acquiring off the foreclosure list? Cause I can't unilaterally just apply for these things and then later hope the board approves my applications. You know, I assume I need to know about them, then we have to run it through you guys, because otherwise, why is there's an acquisition committee if we're not meeting the
Yeah.
committee? And then it needs to be voted on as a full board that we're gonna proceed, but then by the time we have those two meetings, the foreclosure list applications are closed. So I at least wanted to discuss those two to get a resolution that we plan to do that. But still, like, there's a larger question of what's the timeline like to acquire property off the foreclosure list? What do you guys?
And
know
this
in the
was, you were
past?
like asking what we remembered. in the
Yes.
past, And so I wasn't on AD in the past. But I feel like maybe did we get to see the list early?
Tony would review the list.
Yeah, like,
And it was kind of like Robbins and Lincoln, are they both South Troy?
Yeah, there's a bigger narrative to that conversation.
Yeah, so that, you know, the priority would be the target area. If we thought there was something outside the target area that was, you know, good for the land bank, then we would do it as well.
Mhm.
But I don't remember there being any huge, it was pretty much,
I
Yeah,
don't know,
we had-
A&D ever looked, were you on AD
Yeah.
back then? Did
Yeah.
you guys look at it? Cause I remember him bringing the list to the meeting and saying, oh, you know, I looked at the list and
yeah, look at the list.
here's
this is what I
half a dozen
recommend,
things
and it
and
was like,
yeah.
go for it.
Did he apply ahead of time or did he apply?
Well, we'd get first dibs on the list.
Yeah, so this.
Yeah,
the
we
last-
weren't part of the standard.
Right, so the last time that it went through, nobody reached out to me. And so maybe I needed to talk to the assessor a little more
Yeah.
clearly about their process.
We always
Was
get
it
first
Steve
dibs.
Strickman that was communicating, or are you not sure?
Yeah, it was, I think there was two administrations. I think there was. But yeah, as long as I can remember, we got first dibs on the
Mhm.
foreclosure.
And then you guys voted in committee and then at the regular meeting to go after
I
those?
don't remember always looking at it in committee. I think he would just take a look at it and say, this is available to us. I looked at the parts list. This is what I'm recommending. We would do it right there before.
In the board meeting, okay. Well, what structure would you guys want going forward?
I would like to make a motion to give our executive director the authority to communicate with the administration, whatever administration it is, to bid on what properties he deems fit for, that are within our zone.
Target areas in North Central?
That's what it is currently now.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Anything outside of that, I guess you're gonna have to bring it to A&D or to a special meeting. Right? But this is all gonna be pending what you get from the administration. Are we gonna get that list early again? Or are we gonna be given 2 weeks like this past?
Mhm. Yeah.
So there's some questions to be answered.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're working through it. I wanted to bring up the conversation. Sure.
So I guess, I don't even know if we need a motion for this, right? So
Right,
what I would like to see happen is I would like to see you go to the administration to open up that
Mhm.
line of
We'll go
communication,
today, right?
whether it's Sharon, whether it's who's in Strickland's position now,
Randy Colbert.
whether it's Randy.
Mhm.
If they have to bring it up to food chain, so be it. But, I believe the next,
I gotta run, I'm sorry.
Okay.
alright.
the next list that comes out is probably gonna have some,
Yeah.
some houses, right? This was just a leftover vacant.
Yeah, because the city has to notice.
I mean,
I mean, I can take these from here and then grab yours.
Or the video too.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
The city has to notice people in the Troy record, so, and I read the classified section every day. So I already know all the properties that are gonna be on the list from their foreclosing May 28th. You know, it's my morning routine to see what people are doing in zoning or applications or, you know, figure out who's starting businesses and LLCs. But, you know, so you see that sort of stuff pop up and you can see the target of what potentially, now people can redeem them, And which is good, because if you're redeeming, then you're putting your money back into the city. I mean, the city can't accept more money than they have in fees anyway. So at this point, if they sell it for more money than they have out there, they have to hold that money in surplus for the person. So to them, redeeming is just makes the city just as whole as they would have been if they sold it outright. So that being said, I'll try to communicate with Sharon. I do think that we should at least get these first two noticed, like some sort of resolution that we are targeting those, in the board meeting coming up next Wednesday. Because those first two would assemble 4 parcels, and that 4th parcel gives us a good plot. And I think that was the mission all along. When I first took over, the lawn guy, Joe Whaley, was taking care of those 2 lots because Teresa told him, we're going to acquire them. But I don't see the resolution on our website that says we are targeting them, and when they come on the list, apply for them.
Okay,
So I would like to get ahead of that while we try to figure out the rest of the thing on the first 2.
so we need a motion to move this forward. All right, so we also have to take into consideration, Monday was. Other people had access to these, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I just.
if it's unavailable to
It's
us, it fell through.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the board to open up lines with the administration to pursue 3244 and 3246 Sixth Avenue, if available.
And a second.
All in favor?
It's a quorum, so it's more than half. Yeah, and so going down the list, this number 3 and 4, Andrew, you're probably wondering what this one's all about, but
By me.
well, maybe too, I guess, but, this is just, I'm trying to create a dialogue about the vacant building and vacant lot, list that comes with the city. These 2 properties, explicitly speaking, are in South Troy, and this one's a landlocked land. Nobody's brought this up to the land bank. Nobody's emailed the land bank interested in it. But
Are these on the list?
they were on the list that just closed.
last-
Yes. And I'll tell you the story. I reached out to the administration and the city council and everybody and said, one of my businesses is personally interested in these lands. What do I do if I want to buy them? And what are my conflicts? And Rick Morrissey says to me that I would have to have a resolution from the board saying that they do not want these properties in order for them to then take it to city council for a law committee review at that point, for me to be able to bid on them in some capacity. I could share my long-term vision, or we could talk about what it means for land bank employees in general, because I'm not sure if you know, but both Paul and I have bought properties off the foreclosure list in the past. And so,
Yeah.
Prior to or.
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
so there's
I would have guessed so. I didn't
Right.
know so. but-
Yeah. I've been interviewed.
Oh, I'm aware. I mean, since I've been on the land bank, every occasionally thought like, I don't even want to get like, I don't even know.
But you bring up another thing is we should have a policy
Not a
and
conflict of interest policy, yeah.
a process to which even if you, Andrew, wanted to buy the neighbor's house next door, pretend that it became vacant from your house and it's on the list and it's like, well, me and my wife can fix this up. It'd be fun to do on weekends and hire contractors and it would stabilize my neighborhood. But since we serve on the land bank board, there has to be a process, the same one that the land bank has to go through to acquire off the list. Our board and our employees should know that process ahead of time. Now, I'll be straight with these 2 pieces of land. I own the plot here. I own a couple buildings there. And my long-term goal is to create a roadway so the fire department can access the back of the buildings and you can deliver materials and also people can park and potentially in 20 years develop it. I've been working with the administration on this. I bought parcels in this area in the past. In fact, the one up here on Robbins is only available because I clued them into that fact that they owned it and they haven't done anything with it. And the only thing that's there is a deer stand in a tent city right now. So, this has been a long-term project of mine. Nobody's been interested in these properties for 5-10 years.
So the city has owned these for
They- yeah.
years and years?
Well, this one back here for sure.
Yeah.
This one they just acquired from somebody the individual owned the house next door. He just stopped paying on the land because he sold the house to somebody else. But the point mainly is that I don't think I need to move fast on this, but I'd rather bring it up so that our land bank has a new policy going.
Yeah, if we don't have a clear policy.
And transparent.
Yeah, we definitely should.
Right.
And it's
So,
perfect, perfectly fine for it, that it's in your interest to, move that forward.
do you need a motion to recommend to the full board that the land bank produces a letter we're not
Well,
interested?
it would be a resolution that we're not interested in these land. That would be what I would need to move forward with those, but
Just
that,
the
that
resolution.
doesn't create a policy.
Yeah,
No, I think that's my next thing. This is twofold. We first need something from the land bank stating we are not interested in both parcels. Then we also need something stating WOH has to create a policy.
Right, and they know about this conflict. One of 5 items I told them that we were going through an A&D was this particular
Mhm.
item. And now I want to say, like, if the land bank is interested in this land, like, by all means, let's pursue it as a land bank. So I just want to make sure that I'm not steering you in one way or the other. It's not, my idea isn't necessarily like, I don't want to take away from what the land bank can do.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's hard for you to even start the conversation because
Sure.
now you're leading the conversation. So
Yes.
I'm acknowledging that and appreciate that. I mean, my first thought is, well, certainly the whole board has to be aware, right, and vote. I can't imagine, and I would certainly recommend that we say we're not interested in the landlocked thing. I mean, what are we doing with that? There's nothing we can do with that. It's not in our target, right? It's not the other one, it's also not our target. It's different because it is on the street, but we have many other projects. Sort of to the point I tried to make earlier about, well, sure, we could take the free building and that could be a project, or we could do other projects, and which
Yeah.
is the responsible one. Well, sure. Could we do something and look at that?
Mhm.
Yeah, at this vacant land, but we have other vacant lands. We have, unless we don't have projects, and also if this was anywhere near a target that we were already working on, which it's not. Maybe. we
Yeah,
would have
right
some
now
more
it's all
features.
forests,
Um,
and it's on a hillside, Lincoln Avenue. But it's,
no,
it's,
I mean, it looks low from here.
it's a, Lincoln
Slope
Avenue.
is an understatement.
It's the one where they're that's the first street to get the plow truck to put salt down.
I'll make a motion to recommend Rob. What is it? Robin, there's no numbers to these properties, right?
Right.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to recommend Robbins Ave and Lincoln Ave parcels to the full board for discussion to see whether or not we are interested in pursuing it.
And just to be clear, I can either draft a resolution ahead of time or wait after discussion, and neither one affects me. You know what I mean? Like,
It's for draft.
we can discuss it, and then we can do the resolution a month later.
I would get it all around. So that it's not holding up.
I mean, yeah, I don't care if you draft a resolution. I think our attorney is gonna need to look at it
Yeah,
really carefully.
Wrap it up in one board meeting so this, something like this isn't stretching on to the next, because after we vote on this, the next thing would be to give you permission to get them policy, so that stuff like this is already spelled out.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's the only, my thought about, like, I would be all for moving this forward as quickly as possible, just if it's not in our interest and it is in your interest, then we shouldn't be in the way of it. But we wanna, in that we do need to develop a policy. We wanna make sure whatever we do now is gonna be consistent with that policy, not that it, I mean, things happen and that doesn't always work out, but
Yeah.
we should try to be,
yeah. Well,
anticipate what it looks like it's gonna be and,
That language too also can be determined at the regular board meeting, right?
well, the resolution language,
No, whether or not, how we, to his point is we don't wanna get ahead of ourselves, right? We don't wanna rush this through and then this is not in line with whatever WOH creates, right?
right? Well, they're obviously gonna know about it, and they're gonna,
So.
I can leave the room or whatever, but they would be able to tell you exactly what the policy should be and whether it violates any clear things or any of that.
do you believe you have enough time to create a resolution, have someone from WOH's office review it
Yeah,
to make sure that it'll be in line with whatever they imagine for the policy?
yeah, I think that going forward, I mean, that's what I did with Matt, and what I think would have happened with Kate was that any resolutions we draft, we send to them for review before.
That,
I mean, with Kate, I think she drew all the resolutions up herself.
Yeah.
But I think that with Matt, I've sent him all of them, and he's.
that I don't foresee a problem. Because we're gonna be coming into busy season, right? Spring's coming, you guys are gonna have more projects online, right? And if we're getting a policy, right, we just gotta follow the policy.
Yeah, and
That's the more important thing.
to be clear, right now, there's not actually an open foreclosure list. I can't bid on anything.
It
For
isn't
land
gonna
bank.
come, you got months before you're even taking a chop at this anyways.
Yes.
Even if you do take a chop.
Even if I have the opportunity, because
Correct.
the guy across the street on Lincoln Avenue could have bid on it. We don't know the results until. city
All
council.
four of these things are all speculative. They might not even be around in 2 weeks.
Yes.
So let's just get it off this
Mhm.
piece of paper. It's my suggestion.
Yep.
Okay. So all in favor of recommending Robbins and Lincoln Ave parcels to the board for consideration of whether we want to pursue them or not?
Aye.
Opposed? And please, if you do draft.
Yeah.
The resolution, have WH review it.
Mm-hmm.
84 Ida Street is an interesting, topic, but you want to take, you want
Yeah,
there, you want me to discuss.
and you can discuss. If you want.
So 84 Ida Street is a property, obviously in South Troy. It is a street that a gentleman by the name of Sam Chapone has lived on, his family has lived on for many years. He occupies, I believe, 4 or 5
He owns 4 or 5 in that area.
on the area.
And he also, it would be wise to say that he is part of the Little Italy quality of life.
Experience.
I think, yeah, he's in charge of it. And he runs the ICC, and that neighborhood meeting is one of the meetings that Paul and I went to, and said, this
He's a
is what
staple
they could
of the
do.
community. He reached out to Brad.
I talked to him at a meeting, and I said, you might want to talk to Jamie about.
He also reached out to the administration.
Oh.
So I got an email from Sam asking if 84 Ida Street would be in our wheelhouse. So I asked Brad what he thought. Brad had already done his homework. It was pending. It was already in the contract. So I reached out to Sam. I said, listen, I don't want to tell you this is something we would not consider, but at this point, like it's not something that we can consider because you're under contract. This was about 2 weeks ago. In the interim, it went not pending. Deal fell through. So I reached out to Sam and I said, listen, I don't know how much you've been praying, but the deal fell through. Now, I have to uphold my end of the bargain. I said, I told you I would at least bring this to A&D committee to see if this is something that we would consider. So he's done his homework. He has reminded me that the land bank has done at least 3 projects on or around Ida that we've sold.
I remember years ago.
Yeah.
48 Ida, 103 Ferry
And
Street.
then the
Fifth
Ferry
Avenue.
Street, the Fifth Avenue, and then the Adams Street to Sean
Okay.
Schaefer, which that was one of the first things I ever voted on. So it was kind of a hard thing to say, okay, we won't consider. So you did or did not do a field visit?
I did, and I actually emailed into your phone. We'll have updated pictures. I just emailed them to you.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have
Yeah.
your phone. I had texted him to Jamie because, we were preparing for the A&D, and I said, this is, I did a field visit and this is what I saw.
So I guess the only thing we can do here, right, is to have this property considered at the board meeting, if this is something we are interested in, right?
Yeah, I mean, it would be a stabilization project. We could get ready. I mean, my mindset is like the neighborhoods, we all do have a target area, but at the same time, we are the land bank for the whole city. So it's
Yeah.
communicating that. Now, that being said, I'd say like my house in District 5, we bought it. It had a red X and a hole in the roof. And there was an auction and it auctioned up all the way to 90,000 before those people got weeded out, and we ended up with 40,000 for the building. That was 2019.
Mhm.
So I don't think in District 5, we necessarily need to worry if a building is a red X
Yeah.
building, people are going after them. That's not to say that something might not come up, on a outside street like Griswold or, off Winter Street or something. You never know. But I do think, and in District 3, Beaman Park, RPI area, a lot of people do want to buy up properties. And it's not like the land bank really has to get in there and rescue stuff. That being said, I think 332 9th Street borders 2 and 3. But I really think 1, 2, and 6, and in this case, this is District 4, there's going to be potential in those districts in the city that we need to come in and help where there's not the properties might not be investable. Now, my theory with 84 Ida Street, as I think it through, so there's a vacant building registry in the city, and any vacant building, if it doesn't, to our point at the Tripp building, they have to pay a fee if it's vacant and if it can't be lived in, unless you have a building permit that's open or you have it listed for sale. That being said, all you have to do is list it for sale, and then you don't have to pay the vacant building fee, and you can slow play the process to where you can eventually catch back up. At 84 Ida Street at $80,000, I mean, look at this property is down to the studs and it needs everything. We just sold $40,000 last week. We're considering an application for $25,000. These are brand new roofs. These are places that have, a new foundation on one side on Park. So I think we can't pay 80 in my mind. It seems like that he might be inflating the price to avoid the vacant building fee.
Yeah.
That's a potential. I mean, maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist, but at the same time, if it was 40,000, would a person from the community jump on it to develop it? But this is where I think our land bank partnership with the city is important. And I talked to the director of code this. I said, you guys have enforcement mechanisms to encourage people to move. When we did the site visit, there was ice on the sidewalk. There was trash in the backyard. There's mattresses in one of those pictures. There's a mattress inside somebody broke in and
Yeah, someone's
sleeping.
sleeping in there, right?
Yeah. I mean, good for them. They found shelter, but at the same time,
Fire.
oh, right. And on top of that, there's no stairwell to the second floor. And I said, there should be a red X on the building. The fire department gets in, they go in through the back, they go through and they walk and they fall right down and break their leg or whatever, and they can't get back out of the building. I don't know, there's a lot to it, but at the same time, we can, as a land bank, move forward with LBI capital or LBI phase 2 money to acquire. We have, I think, $125,000 in our grant funding
Acquisition.
for
costs.
acquisition. That doesn't mean we just throw $80,000 and make somebody unjustly enriched by, sitting on a building that's a nuisance to the neighborhood. But this is not our reserve, our cash reserves. This would be money that we would attempt to get HCR to fund the acquisition. And in doing so, we're doing a case study at the same time. We're responding to the neighborhoods that are reaching out to us to help alleviate a problem. We can stabilize the building and we can clean up the outside, board it up to protect it so people aren't inside. God forbid a fire happens, somebody's sleeping overnight and the fire department says, oh, don't go in, there could be a catastrophe. Anyway, we could push this through as a case study of trying to buy a building, but I don't think we should be spending 80,000. At the same time, I think it's a good attempt and a good faith attempt for us to try to be the land bank we have a target area, but at the same time, we have a neighborhood.
South Shore needs love too.
We serve the city totally.
So
Yeah.
Today we can recommend to this board, to the full board for discussion. whether we pursue, right?
This committee is the gatekeeper to the full board.
And then at the full board meeting, we can then decide if they do decide to move forward with it. We could also decide at that meeting, you know, we could give you or someone else the authority to negotiate. 80,000 is too much. Like I won't approve it. I won't vote yes for
Mhm.
80,000.
Yeah, I wouldn't either.
But I would vote yes on negotiating to purchase it, to stabilize it. So.
Yeah. And be transparent, I did reach out to the treasurer's office, comptroller's office, and they did tell me that they're $7,500 back on the taxes. Because my initial thought was, if the city's already gonna foreclose, then we don't have to
Wait
waste
it out.
Right.
our resources. They'll foreclose and tell us
So that's-
$5,000. But he's on a payment plan, so they said years from now before something changes.
Is he's 75, when did you reach out? I guess?
Last week.
Alright, so he's back his 2025 taxes? Or is that the
I think
second?
70, I think a building like,
More than a year or something. isn't it?
yeah, I think the building like that might be $2,000, $3,000 a year.
So 24s and then he had the 25 first installment,
Maybe even 23, but
really?
I don't know. I don't know for sure. I can definitely get all that, but I think it just knowing time, but making payments.
Yeah. That we got you. So with that being said, I'd like to make a motion to recommend 84 Ida Street to the full board for consideration of what we do with it.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed, motion passes.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess, the last two things, we just had that flow chart that we wanted to go back over. We didn't have time last time. And then the disposition policy, I'm tabling that. Well, I just took it off. I think you guys would probably table it, not me. But I think WOH wants to do a more quality
Yeah.
review of all our stuff. They've already gotten into the conflict of interest and the bylaws. On Friday, they wanted me to give them the Word documents, and I said, I don't have anything but what's on the website or in paper form. And so I said I could convert to PDF. So they're getting going on that. They're doing a great job, honestly. So this flow chart, I think I cleaned it up. If we could just discuss any of the changes before we recommend to the full board to take it as in terms of like a sort of an organizational tool or document for the organization. One bigger thought I have for the organization is just having some of these obvious things spelled out in a binder where they're not actually policies, but rather just, this is how you did it. If, Brad or Paul wasn't here, this is how the organization runs. Because the day I walked in, there was no instruction manual. And by creating an instruction manual, at least the organization isn't beholden to one individual, and it can be passed off to another individual if that ever came up.
I think this is thorough and very consistent, so.
So where does this go? This flow chart, this is for our internal use only? Is this gonna be
Mhm.
publicly available
I
anywhere?
think having it on the website for on the purchase application or properties section would be like a frequently asked questions or,
Yeah.
To make sure your application is complete, make sure, you've identified what kind of project it is, and then also what documents you have in your application. Because a finished house, if you're gonna rent or own or occupy, is a 13-page application, but a rehab house is a 39-page application. Now, the 39 pages is probably 20 pages of documents,
Right.
just information, but you don't need to know what kind of level of finishes you're putting in a finished house if it's done. We're selling you the house. We finished the house.
Right.
So that was one of the, this just clarifies for people and also makes them feel a little bit more secure when they're on the site and perusing around. They've done enough passive work where they're, they can see, I need to have more than just the application. I also need a contract. I need to know what my restrictions are so that, okay. And then it might prod more questions instead of somebody somebody just filling out the basics on the application, because that's what I'm seeing is that people fill out the application loosely and send it just to see what happens. And then they send it like 2 days before an A&D committee meeting and then it's sort of like, well, we can't consider it because your application is not thorough enough. And you have to wait another month because we didn't have a conversation ahead of time. So at least in this case, you know, people can know what they need before they come. But it's not a policy, it's more of a guiding document internally and externally. I mean, you guys saw the email change where I'm saying, what do I need to do to help these people buy property from us? So this was something I needed at the time as well.
So we just need to move this to full board, right?
I think so, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And this is all the changes that were pointed out.
Yes,
From-
yeah.
From
The co-development agreement was primarily the large, you know, because I just didn't know, you know, I didn't know what the agreement was with Habitat.
Yep, okay. Yeah.
Or how to write it out, I guess.
Then I'll make a motion to recommend this to the full board for approval.
Mhm.
All in favor?
It needs a second.
Oh, there's only two.
I know, but, yes, I will second.
All in favor?
I will vote yes.
None opposed, motion passes. And Brett, I think that should go on the
Website.
the purchase application portion and, mostly asked questions portion,
Yeah.
if we do have.
Yeah. As we're developing.
Because,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, yeah.
I was just thinking if this is on the website, my first thought is we just want to be careful to use the same language
Mhm.
for stuff. So like our side lot application, is that called a side lot application?
So our,
Because, you know, people are gonna look, they're like, oh, it's on the list, where do I find that,
Yeah.
or whatever.
yeah, because the side lot application is actually just a part of the purchase application, so. And it-
So that, yeah, so
It's like-
that's the kind of stuff, like, if this is a guide for people to look at, we just wanna make sure it
Right,
lines up.
complete this section if you're purchasing a
Right.
building in the side lot.
Yeah,
Yeah, complete the section if you're purchasing a side lot. And then, yeah, but then at that point, you don't need a development plan or management. plan. We could have 2 applications, you know, obviously, we don't even have a side lot available for sale right now,
yeah,
so we're doing good in terms of not confusing many people. But we probably should just have a side lot on the drop down bar, we'd have the purchase application, and then we can eliminate the parts from the side lot from the property application.
yeah, you know.
So we'll table disposition policy? for
Yeah, because-
Attorney review?
Yeah, WAH is they're gonna plow right through our stuff, so.
I think we've covered all old business and new. March 3rd, 8:30, same time, same place for the next meeting.
Mhm.
Then I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.